Oh, it's meeting order again. Stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anybody on the audience like to speak on the subject not on the agenda?
I gotta do a roll call real quick, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, you're good at it.
Jamie Melky,
Here.
Wendy Reeve,
Here.
Tom Graham,
Yeah,
and Jeannie Benjamin.
Here.
Yeah, Marshall is absent, but we do have a quorum.
let's go.
Hi. I'm Emily Kloss. I'm a cross country. Been a coach in Harp Springs for over 35 years. Congratulations, ladies, doctor. That was pretty amazing this year. But all I wanted to do is just say, we've been doing the Paul Revere 4th of July race. This was our 52nd year for it. It's a pretty big tradition. And I just wanted to make sure I thank the city and especially the chief and the guys that helped work, because it's a huge fundraiser for us. Gives scholarships, it does a lot to our program. So I just wanted to thank you guys for it, for allowing us to be able to do this. And hopefully, I've only been in charge of it for 28 years. Olivia's doing the majority now, so it's great. But I just wanted to thank you guys for that.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Kilborn, 703 Delwood. I'm here to, well, first of all, let me say that I want to thank that's better. I want to thank the city manager, who I called in June and said, you should see our street. There's potholes everywhere. It's not unusual. In fact, when you look at our street, Second and Glen Avenue, I don't think there's streets that are worse in terms of potholes. But he was very kind, and the next morning, he didn't even know where these places were, Glen and Second Street, but I think he went down and checked it out, and the next morning they were filling the potholes, so thank you very much for that. What we really need, I told him, is to have the street paved. Well, I had talked 2 years before about, with Victor, the previous city manager, about paving. He said, oh yeah, we're gonna take care of that. I said, oh great, when? He said, well, 2032. He said, what we might do is early as 2030. And the bottom line of that is you don't have the money, and I understood that. So the next thing is, well, then what can be done? Well, thank you for having the cold patch, they call it. They put it in the little holes and they stomp it down. It works for a while, but it certainly isn't long term. What I'm hoping that somebody here will put on their agenda or bring it to the right committee to rediscuss Second Street particularly, and Glen Avenue. And maybe do some what I call hot patch. Hot patching is nothing more than a slight paving, maybe 10, 20-foot strips. Possibly we can do this next spring, because I have a feeling it would be hard to do right now. But consider, particularly on the curves and over the little waterway that we have, I counted maybe 6 places where we had 20 feet of hot patching. It would solve a lot of problems rather than going and filling the holes. And so and in a sense, I'm a little embarrassed about our street. It really is. We have such a nice neighborhood. And once you get to the overhang of trees, the tunnel tree that we should call it, and that's where they all began. It's even starting back up again. So at the very minimum, if we can't get some hot patching done, then maybe consider having once a month with the cold patch come in and fill in the holes. That would be better than what we have now. Right now, I know we've done it once. So there's some, our board said, yeah, we're probably gonna have it one more time. Thank you, I hope. But give some consideration to building a little bit more or sand and this hot patch arrangement on Second Street and Glen Avenue. Appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Hi, Patrick O'Brien, 565 East Main. Our Parks and Rec Director, Tina Honeysett, asked me to give the city an update on our effort to clean our beach up at City Beach. And she admonished me that I have 3 minutes. So timer, 3 minutes.
That'll be tough.
And Chief, I pre-authorized you to tase me at 3 minutes, 30 seconds. So I guess I'll start off with, there's a little bit of bad news to report. The geese really don't show up at City Beach to roost until about 3 or 4 AM. So if you're trying to observe them and study them, that's really bad time of day. But on the good news side of it, we deployed these lights, and I brought up one to show you what the city, what they bought. You like to just pass that around. It's just a simple light that emits a soft orange flash every 3 to 5 seconds. It's activated by darkness. And what we did was, if you go to this page, this is our city beach. And we put 4 lights along the grassy area. And you can see in the second handout, the tracks, it can be heavily trafficked by the geese. But what the lights have done, they pushed the geese off the grass and onto the shoreline, a narrow strip of sand right at the shoreline. So with that, it's manageable and controllable. Fortunately, our city lifeguards have stepped up to it. And you got it? Yeah. Every morning, the waste is cleaned up by the lifeguards. Without that, the beach would be untenable. So flip that last page like this. This is what the city beach looks like on a Sunday when the lifeguards aren't there. Those circles are droppings from the geese. And if you notice, there's one right at the foot of that cute little girl right there. And her mom is giving me mama bear looks, but I was giving them back to her because she's letting her kids play and film. So we have a lot of people using the beach really aren't aware of the problem. And fortunately, our lifeguards are cleaning it up. So talking with Tina Honeysett on Parks and Rec, she has a plan to expand this next year to the entire waterfront. And we'll see if we can get an extended benefit all along the marina, Ford Park area where there's a lot of grass. So I think it's success. It's a wild animal we have to cohabitate with. So there's a lot of variability, but I think it's been money well spent. And I really thank the city for being open-minded and willing to innovate. 3 minutes. Put that pager down.
Good morning.
Anyone else like to speak? Yes.
Hi, my name is Debbie Perron and I'm on Second Street. I just want to bring up building height, just food for thought for everybody. If that's okay, can I bring it up here? I know that people are talking about doing the 35-foot building height and I'm losing sleep over it because 35 feet, you can fit 3 stories in. And I know that everybody's talking about only doing 2 stories, but you build that building 35 feet high and somebody's going to put 3 stories on the inside because it can be done. And I really wish you would think about lowering that height so we don't have to worry about somebody potentially building 3 feet or 3 stories inside of it. And I'd just like you to err on the caution for Harbor Springs, for the beauty of it and the salvation of it, so.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time?
Hello, council. I have like a whole speech here about the Blackbird Museum that I'm gonna skip in lieu of our young athletes. But I'd just like to request that you add it to the agenda for the next meeting discussing the Blackbird Museum. Thank you.
Hi, quick point of request in order, since all of these lovely girls are here and some of them are on a work break because they are the backbone of our economy. Can we maybe? Because I know, I don't want people to feel like they can't talk or they're trying to rush to get the girls out.
Are we still doing public comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
My name's Dawson Moore, West Traverse Township. This is kind of a follow-up to comments I made to Parks and Rec last week about the state of the city bathrooms down at Zorn Park. I just wanted to first say thank you. I did get a chance to listen to the rest of the meeting, and it seemed like the appropriate amount of concern was shown, and hopefully things are moving in the right direction. I saw positive changes in this week with signs going up. I think Nate got more trash cans down. I heard Chris, you were helping with the washouts on Saturday and stuff, so positive improvements, but I just, I have an idea, potentially, I did speak with West Traverse Township officials and, one of the trustees in Middle Traverse Township. I can't speak for them, obviously, but it sounds like there is some interest on their end in possibly starting a dialogue with the city, or possibly even the concept of having some representation on the Parks and Rec board. You know, they do contribute a fairly significant amount in cost sharing to the parks program, and so it might be an interesting idea for the council to consider having them involved in some way to reflect their contributions in that. And I just, I wanted to invite any council members that hadn't been down there yet to see the work that had been done this spring. I'd invite you to go check it out. Just kind of picture what it might be like to have kids there and changing your kids, and, you know, the showers are back up and running. That's great. Drinking fountains are still out of commission. I think it's going on a month. And the men's bathroom is just kind of a disaster. It's just raw plywood in there behind the urinal. And as far as I checked this evening, those permits are still showing up as disapproved as of July 8th. So I know Jamie said, you know, it sounds like you guys are gonna keep on it and get to the bottom of it, but that was just my update. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we get the girls out?
Yeah, I make a
Yeah.
motion that we move the proclamation honoring the high school's soccer champions up on the agenda.
Go ahead, sir.
So Mayor Chris Kukulski, City Manager, on your behalf, I'm going to read the proclamation recognizing the Harbor Springs High School girls soccer team. So whereas the Harbor Springs High School girls soccer team has brought extraordinary honor and distinction to the city of Harbor Springs through an outstanding season characterized by dedication, perseverance, teamwork, sportsmanship, and excellence. And whereas through countless hours of practice, unwavering commitment, disciplined preparation, and exceptional athletic performance, the Harbor Springs Rams captured the 2026 Michigan High School Athletic Association State Championship, achieving one of the greatest accomplishments in the history of Harbor Springs High School athletics. Program's been around a little bit more than just a few years, right? So that's kind of a big deal. Whereas these remarkable achievements reflect not only athletic excellence, but also the character, integrity, determination, and resilience that define the students of Harbor Springs Public Schools. And whereas head coach Aaron Riley and assistant coach Shaylin Grayway and the entire coaching staff demonstrated exceptional leadership, mentorship, and dedication through the season, inspiring these outstanding student athletes to achieve their highest potential. And whereas the accomplishments of these young women have inspired our community, served as role models for future generations of Rams, and strengthened the tremendous pride shared by the citizens of Harbor Springs. And whereas the city of Harbor Springs proudly recognizes the members of this championship team, and I'll confess, I'm going to use first names. Seniors Fran, Lily, Sophie, Lizzie, and Sydney. Juniors Julia, Eden, and Steffi. Sophomores Keeler, McKenna, Lillian, Adley, and Addie. and freshmen Mimi, Bella, Hadley, Taya, Neve, and Lauren. Now therefore, on behalf of Mayor Tom Graham, Mayor of the City of Harbor Springs, Michigan, do hereby proclaim the city's heartfelt congratulations and appreciation to the Harbor Springs High School girls soccer team, its coaches, student athletes, Harbor Springs Public Schools, families, and supporters for winning the 2026 Michigan High School Athletic Association State Championship. On behalf of the City of Harbor Springs, I commend these exceptional young women for their hard work, dedication, teamwork, sportsmanship, and commitment to excellence. Their accomplishments have brought lasting pride to our community and serve as an inspiration to future generations of Harbor Springs student athletes. I encourage all residents of Harbor Springs to join me in celebrating this extraordinary achievement and in recognizing the remarkable example these champions have set both on and off the field. Thank you very much and congratulations, young ladies.
And Healer. Niece.
Mr. Mayor, just in case anybody doesn't realize that this group is in 42 years, public schools is only won, I believe, 2 state championships in Division 4. And this is one of those 2, is that correct, Kate? 2 or 3. So it's mostly faith-based schools, and this is a public school that won this championship. So we went down.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Yeah.
Just let them know something.
The city inadvertently neglected to include the written citizen comments in the city council packet that was posted online. To rectify that omission, I'm going to read into the record all 7 of them. I'm writing to urge you and the city council and planning committee to dissolve the DDA. It is another layer of unnecessary expenditures and restrictions in our little quaint city of Harbor Springs. We have many other needs to be addressed. Sincerely, Sandra Wolf, 577 East Bluff, Harbor Springs, voter and taxpayer. As residents in Harbor Springs, we respectfully ask that you support beginning the process of dissolving the Downtown Development Authority. We ask that you work with your fellow council members to initiate the actions required under Michigan law to dissolve the DDA and provide for an orderly transition of its infrastructure responsibilities to the city. Thank you for your service to our community and for your consideration of this request. Sincerely, Barry and Rebecca Backus, 500 West Summit Street. Dear council members, as a resident taxpayer in Harbor Springs, I respectfully ask for your support to begin the process of dissolving the DDA and request that this be an agenda item for your meeting on July 20th. Arguably, downtown Harbor Springs doesn't need additional development. Our tax dollars should prioritize the citywide needs of infrastructure, storm preparedness, sewer maintenance, electricity, neighborhood sidewalks, and other essential services that the city manager will ideally coordinate through the DPW. Thank you for your service to our community and for your consideration of this request. Sincerely, Frank Rain, 475 West Summit Street. Dear council members, as a resident voter and taxpayer in Harbor Springs, I respectfully ask that you support beginning the process of dissolving the Downtown Development Authority. I ask that you work with your fellow council members to initiate the actions required under Michigan law to dissolve the DDA and provide for an orderly transition of its infrastructure responsibilities to the city. My understanding of the need for the DDA is for towns that are blighted and under economic decline. None of this is true for Harbor Springs. Instead of wasting taxpayer money on unnecessary enhancements, our infrastructure issues should be addressed first. I recently fell on a poorly maintained sidewalk and broke my wrist. For the submitted report, please see the city manager. Thank you for your service to our community and for your consideration of this request. Sincerely, Nan Motts, Route 68 West 3rd Street, resident voter and property owner. Hello, Chris. First, welcome to Harbor Springs and hope the move back to Michigan is going well. After listening to the DDA meeting on Zoom last week, it has become painfully aware that the DDA is no longer needed in Harbor Springs and the TIF funds that they receive from the taxpayers needs to be undiverted and remain in the general fund. I would also add the city of Harbor Springs needs to change the paid city planners from Beckett and Rader to someone else due to a very obvious conflict of interest. I was on the DDA when it was revamped some 10, 12 years ago. Downtown was not doing well and we were looking for ways to help. Those days are over and the downtown is back and doing great on its own. What's not doing well are the streets and sidewalks. Again, it is time to dissolve the DDA and keep that portion of the taxpayer TIF funds in the general fund. Currently, the largest single cost to the DDA is paying a part-time director to look for ways to spend taxpayer money on a few square blocks in downtown Harbor Springs. This is money being wasted for tourists and being diverted from the citizens' needs. As far as the paid planners go, between the Main Street project going through the planning commission stages now and the DDA streetscape presentation on July 8th, it's very apparent that Beckett and Rader are representing the state of Michigan, including the RRC and the MEDC, and not representing the city of Harbor Springs. They seem to want to defend the 3-story eyesore on Main Street and absolutely want to waste $500,000 of taxpayer money on projects not needed in Harbor Springs. We do not need more narrow roads, more cement, change in lighting, change in lamppost colors, need proof follow the survey that 70% say leave us alone. I have so much more to say on these two items, but want to keep this short. I hope it makes the point I'm trying to relay to the city council. Please include this letter in the July 20th city council packet. Thank you in advance, Chet James. As residents of the Glen Beach Association for the past 25 years, we are concerned about the deteriorating condition of 2nd Street through the woods. This lovely winding road has supported heavy trucks, cars, bikes, and pedestrians for over 30 years since it was last fully paved. Now, though, the many potholes, loose gravel, and narrow sections have become extremely difficult to navigate and are literally an accident waiting to happen. Our family tries to bike into town as often as possible to save parking spots for visitors, but that has become a treacherous daily experience. After years of discussions with the city, nothing has been done. We hope to see this situation remedied before a major accident occurs. Sincerely, Sally and Richard Lehman, 835 Glen Drive. Dear council members, as a resident taxpayer in Harbor Springs, I respectfully ask that you support beginning the process of dissolving the Downtown Development Authority. I ask that you work with your fellow council members to initiate actions required under Michigan law to dissolve the DDA and provide for an orderly transition of its infrastructure responsibilities to the city. Thank you for your service to our community and for your consideration of this request. Sincerely, Ashley O'Reilly, resident and property owner. That's all of them.
We still have 3 minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
John Wayman, 43 East 3rd Street. You probably remember my last 3 minutes, and I'll make this very short. I'm not exactly sure what the process is in terms of dealing with the issue of short-term rental ordinance. Are you first going to deal with it as to whether or not the planning commission will be asked to address it? Or does it automatically go to the planning commission?
I don't know, but I thought they pretty well dealt with that a couple of years ago.
Well, in any event, what I've done is I've asked our city manager to distribute to you questions that I think you would ask AI about the short-term rental ordinance issues that have been exhibited in many cities. And AI generated a number of answers that I think you would be interested in. As you know, I've already taken the position, and we've got a couple of neighbors here who agree the existing short-term rental ordinance is not enforceable. Probably the most important thing you can do is to first give guidance. If you decide that the short-term rental ordinance needs to be addressed. I think you first have to decide and give guidance to the planning commission on certain specific issues. Probably the most important one is whether or not you allow a business rental in residential areas. And if the answer to that question is yes, the zoning ordinance that deals with residential areas becomes a big issue. So I would ask that you first decide that there are no business rentals as distinguished from a cottage owner who might rent their property. And with that guidance, then go to the planning commission and ask that they address the ordinance on the issue of how to get it enforced. And the information that you've been provided shows how various cities have dealt with this. Because as you know, I've already provided you with the information that the present ordinance we have is not enforced. Thank you very much.
Linda Rathwitz, 519 East Third Street. I know where I live. I'm just, I support John's request for, bucking up the ordinance. Seems like we spend a lot of time at our meetings trying to figure out how to preserve the charm of our wonderful small town. And, the idea that if we have rentals, that the system, if you can, game the system, it will be done. So I ask, please consider taking up the ordinance again. Thanks.
Anyone else? Any comments from the board?
City council members.
You already have a change in the agenda, did you?
Yes, Mayor, I do have one change, which is I would like you to consider adding an additional item under city council new and old business. And that would be Center Street construction budget and street construction fund. So it's in a yellow, my city manager report. I'll refer to it later, but if you're inclined to add that to the agenda, because there is not just a report, but a fiscal effect of needing some direction from you. The city attorney, I think, correct, is advised that we literally add it to the agenda as a discussion item. Thank you. So I think we just need a motion to that effect is what my assumption is, if somebody.
If
There any other changes?
not on our part, staff wise, anything from the council, then if not, we would entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Next regular meeting is at noon and not 7 at the bottom. Is that part of?
Well, that's part of the consent.
Okay.
So this is just the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Tom Graham,
Yes.
Jamie Melky,
Yes.
Jeannie Benjamin,
Yes.
Wendy Reeve.
Yes.
Motion carried to approve the agenda as amended. Now we've placed a special presentation for the kids up above, so we can move on to the consent agenda.
Not sure what Jeff is.
If I could just hop in briefly, to just follow up John Wayman's comment about short-term rentals. That is something that's in the city code and under the direct purview of city council, but historically, we have asked for feedback from the planning commission. In the past, the planning commission has taken that up in the fall to make any recommendations on changes that would affect the next year. I tentatively have that on the agenda for the planning commission at their September meeting. So if you have any specific thoughts or ideas that you would like them to address at that time, please let me know and we'll make sure that we bring that up as part of that discussion and conversation.
How much money do you make off your short-term rental fees?
The application for the short-term rental is $400 per year. I'm gonna guess, this is an off the top of my head number, but I believe we have approximately 100 licenses. So let's estimate roughly $40,000 a year in the licensing and fees for that.
I thought they only had 60 some.
There's a limit of 63 within single-family residential neighborhoods.
Okay.
But we have an additional, let's say about 40 in other districts such as the Central Business District, where we have no limitation on the number of licenses available.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to move item C from the consent agenda and put it under discussion as B.
I would like to move item F to discussion item as well. But I would move to approve items A, B, D, and E of the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Jamie Melky,
Yes.
Wendy Reeve.
Yes.
Tom Graham,
Yes.
Jeannie Benjamin.
Yes.
To approve the consent agenda as amended.
Go to the discussion items then.
So Mayor and Council, would you like me to kind of kick things off here? Okay, so what I've done against all my better judgment of don't make any recommendations for your first 90 days. It was seemed clear through a lot of feedback that I received that we were going to need to do something to have this discussion sooner than that. So what I've done is taken the purchase and procurement policy that was on the books and frankly updated it. Updated it in a couple of primary ways. First, I did update the numbers, recognizing that though for the better part of a couple of decades, we were able in this industry to say inflation is such a small thing that you don't have to have it impact your numbers every year, all things, but that is no more. So over the past, since COVID, through COVID and since COVID, a lot has changed relative to cost. So I simply bumped up, frankly, the allotments of the authority in it, generally with what I saw from both construction inflation more than general inflation, because frankly, most of this is bidding construction or projects. And then also what I've seen kind of in the industry and neighbor communities. The bigger chunk of the new language is trying to add some parameters and sideboards to language that was already there. There was language in the policy that would allow you annually, actually it said annually, there would be a certain level of review that would take place simultaneously with the budget. And I think from a cost perspective, that makes perfect sense. But there's also so much going on typically, at least what I've seen at budget time, that I've added here some additional, maybe at the 3 and 5 year areas, not as requirements. That's something frankly, I expect to hear some feedback from you guys, whether you like that or don't like it, is when you do that deeper analysis every few years, recognize that at any point the council could say, I want an analysis done as the policy body. A decision can be made after the analysis that we're not going to put this out for a request for proposal. We're perfectly content with the people we have under contract, the pricing that they're charging us, and the quality of work that they're doing. So, but that being said, like I said, there's quite a bit of new language, a couple of pages worth, adding some more kind of components to particularly the professional services area. The other area I would mention is seems to maybe go counter to that, which is sole source procurement. There are certain things I've seen, particularly I've used the closest example, software. And actually law enforcement's probably becoming, along with software, right, their tasers, their equipment. This is stuff you don't want to be swapping out every 3 years. Or you sign into contracts with them as to how all that data is being collected, saved, and shared in your systems, that there may be time, actually, I'm gonna say there's going to be times when sole sourcing something versus just saying, hey, what's out there in the industry, may be the right thing to do. So the policy specifically addresses a sole sourcing component. And then I think the last comment I would make, and then absolutely welcome, I put it here as a discussion item for feedback, not with the idea at all that it would get adopted this evening, but that we would get some direction. Is that, like I said, sorry, I completely lost my train of thought there. So sole sourcing, how often we look at RFPs and RFQs. And then you've got the summary in the end there. So I think that wraps it up. So curious if I'm totally off base in the direction I've headed here, or if you want to pursue this conversation, give us some direction, and so I can move forward. I did get some feedback from you already in writing. I had hopes of being able to bring that to you and add it this evening. You'll find out when we talk about Center Street. Some things happened during the day and that didn't happen. So I'll make adjustments. Thank you for those who gave me it in writing. It's not being ignored. I just didn't get a chance to type it in as options. So listening for your perspective and how you may want to pursue this issue early on in my tenure.
Thank you, sir.
When you say periodically test the marketplace without requiring automatic rebidding, I'm wondering what you're envisioning you're doing there.
Well, here's an example I've already run across. So we've got a pump being replaced in the water system. We have a price. My first question was, well, are there other companies? This was about an $80,000 project. So my first question is, do we have people qualified to do this work other than this one company that's been doing this for us for several decades? The feedback I got was, well, there aren't many. And we've been working with them really closely and they're doing good work. So then I asked the engineer, well, can you tell me, is this price a competitive price by market? And we have not gotten to get deeper than me asking that question. So in answering your question, I mean, if the feedback I get back is, oh no, you're way under, they're charging you a lot less or a lot more than what we're seeing, I think those could affect ultimately, if the work is of quality, do we recommend going out for an RFP or not? And the gray area here is you could come up with that kind of a story for probably every service or some of our longer term infrastructure issues, which is just, an adjustment I need to make in working in such a smaller environment is I just don't know how much competition there is and who do we have the relationships with. But most importantly, the fundamentals are we getting excellent quality work and service? Is the price that we're paying for it a reasonable and fair market price for that work? And I guess it really fits with the quality. If their work is not being well respected by the community or the elected body or the administration and staff, then something's wrong. So we have to dig into why is this happening? Because it ultimately, if those things don't exist, it's undermining people's trust and confidence in us as an organization, whether it's a staff person, a contractor, a bidder, that kind of thing. So those goals remain the same kind of in the beginning of this draft policy amendment. I'm sorry, I did think of the third thing, and that was location. So I didn't get a chance to adjust it, but I was surprised that in the scoring criteria and the current policy, you get the same amount, you're eligible for the same amount of points if you are close or reside inside of Harbor Springs, as do you based on your qualifications of your work. And though I think it's a common debate, particularly a political one, politically supported generally, to give some increase to local bidders. They're taxpayers, they know us well, whatever. I wouldn't have expected that point to be equal to that of their competency to do the work that you need to be done. So that's an area I think may still need some tweaking if you're inclined to do that. Not to take away the local benefit, but
Do we have any idea? I mean, city attorney, city engineering firm, arborist, auditors, city planner, IT agency, is there anybody else?
on the service side,
Yeah,
and IT is really pretty brand new to us, right?
Yeah.
I think you've certainly, those are the ones I hear named. I think you've certainly hit the big ones. I don't know when we get into the utilities, say electric. I mean, they might be all engineers, but also maybe do we have long-term relationship with contractors?
so we might have a city engineering firm for, let's say, streets and also an engineering and electrical engineering firm.
Absolutely. In fact, we do have a different firm that helps us on the electric side. Then Benchmark is who I understand does most of our standard civil engineering, but Verdantis, which recently purchased or absorbed who we had for many, many years. And each of the meetings I've had for the substation, and then one today with Consumers Energy was with Verdantis, was our representative along with Huey and I.
There is some reasoning behind, if I may interject.
Yeah,
briefly.
please.
Being the location, the size, even though some of the projects seem daunting financially to us, some of the bigger firms across the country, it's not worth their time. So yes, we have one for, as Chris said, civil engineers, our electrical engineers, our auditors. We've done this in the past. It's been a while and probably time to look at it again, but depending on how you guys come up with a policy, but we generally don't have a whole lot of interest because it's just not worth their time.
There's also a lot of benefit to, so the point system. And I don't know how you add in or how you say. There may be somebody, I'm gonna throw this out there, the bathrooms at the beach. So Fairburn, I think maybe was a little bit more, but they had the history, so it's going to save us in the end. So is there anything in the point system that gives points for a knowledge of
Yes.
who we are and what we need rather than if they're just good at their job?
I think it's knowledge of the project is one of the categories, right?
Yes, and prime example right there, that's the only bid we had.
Okay.
Company's experience in providing similar services.
Yeah, I simply I didn't change any of the language in that, sorry. I didn't change any of the language in that area, which is 4A I, but I changed the order. Because again, it had location seemingly is the most important thing. And it's important, but I would say details of proposal and demonstration of project understanding, and you can read the rest of that paragraph, is the bulk of what we want to make sure we're selecting people who excel in that.
Thank you.
I think that each evaluator will award up to 10 points for each category. I think 10 points is too broad. It's going to skew your numbers outrageously. And if you have 4 bids, 4 points is, or even 5, would come closer to giving you an accurate number. And then you say here, the city manager shall conduct a comprehensive performance review of each recurring professional services contract at least once every 3 years as part of the budget development process. And then you say to ensure the city periodically evaluates marketplace conditions, the city manager should generally consider issuing an RFQ or an RFP for recurring professional services at least every 5 years, unless city council determines the city's interests are better served by continuing the existing professional relationship. So you're gonna look at it once every 3 years, but it's mandatory, you're gonna put it out for RFP every 5.
Unless, so it probably would make some sense to match those up to 3 and 6 kind of thing as a possibility. And the idea is that, yeah, there is an occasion where you do go out for the RFQ or RFP, but it absolutely has deliberate language that if the council administration may recommend against this service that we've been getting is, meets all those criteria. We know we've been able to test that our pricing is fair and the quality of work is fair. So why go through a RFQ, RFP process if none of those things were looking for change? But it's meant to say you can't just ignore it forever. There should be some timeframes that you're going back.
I'm wondering with only 7 of them, if we aren't better served if we do a comprehensive performance review once every year as part of the budget process.
So I will tell you the current policy, you could read it to say that's what you're gonna do every year. And I think the reality is, from a time management perspective, it's not been happening. And I don't want to say it should have. I can see myself absolutely saying, if we're going to do all 7 comprehensively every year, along with everything else that goes on with the budget, kind of like it stealing from an audit concept. Sometimes I think we're better to say, okay, when you do that audit this year, you're going to dig really deep into this area. And we're going to test that, of course they have the whole audit. And they're looking at everything as auditors, but I've traditionally always seen them in a cycles trading which department or issue they're gonna dig deeper into. So I thought in this regard, maybe you're setting yourself up so you're not stacking up 6 or 7 each year, but maybe you got 1 or 2 you're doing each year, staggering them.
Well, yeah, and that's where I was going with that. So maybe every year you are going to do 2.
I think that coming up with a way to stagger them just to make sure that we're not missing any would be a great idea. But I think that it's going to be a more thorough look at it if we don't expect every year to have a review of all of them. And I think some people might decide not to work with us because that's a lot of work probably for them as well.
That absolutely a fair comment, that even in extremely large organizations, I would hear very commonly, you run us through an RFP process and it is a waste of time. If it feels like it's a waste of time, it doesn't build your credibility and their willingness to work with you more in the future. It can backfire. So I think there should be a sweet spot there on both sides.
So 3 years then, or you do 2 every year and rotate?
Yeah, maybe that's better than even saying.
What have we?
Being more
have we even
specific.
done it in the past?
In fairness, I do not know. I did not take the time to see what was done for the annual review tied to the budget. I mean, I'm assuming every year you're doing budget, you're having budget conversations about how much money are we gonna spend on roads this year. But then how in depth you went into a conversation about benchmark or performance, who bought them, I don't know.
I would say that it's never been done formally, at least in the last 5 to 10 years. And I think that it's a good habit to get into to start making sure that we're keeping up on that.
I mean, your audit is maybe one of your best, and yet I don't know about Northern Michigan, but certainly we were having those issues in Montana, which is by an industry standard, you absolutely want to swap out auditors not every cycle, but you do not want the same auditor auditing your books for 2 decades. But it was getting harder and harder to find anybody who would audit. And like I said, I'm talking about a $450 million budget. So I can see absolutely how auditing our books. So, but anyways, so those things, I think, on like any policy, I would encourage you to recognize it's a policy. And if you get too detailed, it's just unworkable and then gets ignored or doesn't get followed. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why. I would think the most effective thing is to stay somewhere at that sweet spot level where, from a policy perspective, you're comfortable that the right level of analysis is being done and brought to your attention without, burdening the work or those who are bidding it so much that now you've got a lot of time spent to meet a bureaucratic standard of which is not resulting in better quality work at a fair price, to get the job done.
Have you done all your city managers report?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me, but does it say that you will review them like a minimum of every 3 years?
Conduct a documented performance evaluation every 3 years, approximately every 5 years. Consider whether it is appropriate to test the market through an RFQ or an RFP.
Which are kind of 2 different things, like testing the market and performance are.
So they're looking at it every 3 years, but every 5 years it's mandatory, more or less every 5 years that you're going to put it out. Or consider putting it.
I think that's better stated. I think it's not accurate to say that the policy mandates that it go out every 6, and I can say or every 5 in the conversations with some of them, they did express concern, but they thought that was not nearly, these relationships in many parts have gone on a lot more than 5 years and are seen as quite positive on both sides. So I tried to find language, and your help would be greatly appreciated as to where do you say this is important to go deeper than just surface level, but why go creating work or poking something if truly we're getting great service at a fair price by firms or entities who have a great working relationship with the city.
I do like the idea of changing it to 3 and 6, just because then it would actually match up that every 3 or every second term you would be potentially putting out the RFP or RFQ.
Maybe you could even say something if the board wanted to make sure that it wasn't skipped, overlooked, would be it could have language that literally you guys are the ones who are going to, by action, not by default, but by action, are required every 6 years to say, we're not going to go back out.
I think that putting any of that on the council is hard because our terms are so short that in 6 years, none of us will probably be at the table. And so it would be really hard to make sure that that's consistently happening. Whereas if it's on the city manager, then we can hold you accountable for it, or whoever can hold you accountable for it.
Without a doubt, what would happen there would be, it would be my responsibility, or whoever's in the seat's responsibility, following the policy, to put on the agenda, here's my analysis of legal services. My recommendation to you is that we not go out for RFQ or RFP, but you ultimately end up needing to take an action to say, yes, I agree with that, or no, I don't agree with that. Not that the council would be the ones to say, you need to put this on an agenda. It's another reason, though, to be selective in those kind of directive and mandates, because if you've got hundreds of, if you get too many of them, then it just becomes easy to lose track of what's most important and what do we make sure happens.
Stupid question. Right now, how many of them are actually under contract? Or do we just, that's who we use?
Fair question. I don't know. Yeah, I don't have the answer for it. It should be it'll be an easy answer to get back to you on.
Is it maybe good that that's the case? And maybe we just say every 3 years we will evaluate or have discussion over how things are going? Does it have to be so, if they're not under contract, can it be a simple discussion of how are things going on whatever this is? And do we really want a contract?
Well, it's also, and please, our city attorney, if he would add anything. Commonly, there's not a term to these contracts, or there isn't a contract, but there is absolutely clear language as to either side ending the relationship with some kind of notice. So one could argue, oh, that's a forever contract, or no, the contract is 90 days or it's worth 2 weeks, because either side, through a reasonable notification process, can say, we want to move on.
I could say that I think most of the service contracts you have are not contractual in nature. They're terminable at will. You can move on any day of the week you want. And so if you don't like the service you're getting, just communicate it to the service provider and they're gone. That's the way it actually works in reality.
I think the industry frankly prefers that too, right? They don't, there's plenty of work to be done out there. We're not, thankfully, we're not in a recession. We're not in tough times financially as an economy. And so firms typically have more work than they have bodies and staff. So if the city's relationship is not mutually beneficial,
Okay. Thank you.
Do you need a decision from us?
no, I certainly wasn't looking for a decision. I guess what I would ask later ultimately, and I have some written feedback, I have the notes from here, is I would anticipate maybe putting it on the next agenda for an adoption, for action. And go from there. So then, okay. Yes. So then, Mayor, if you like, I can do my city manager report for you now.
Sure.
And actually, I'm gonna skip the first one because we've added it as a specific action or item under new and old business. So Center Street paving and reconstruction, we'll talk about that in a few. Light post survey, so you're well aware, community's well aware, they did. Actually, I didn't get a chance to put Spring Street in there. It's Main and Spring is where they did get the light post painted. There's a QR code right there. People have been weighing in. I think the last number I saw was 22. But hopefully it's much higher. So fantastic. People are giving their feedback. Next kind of bucket, and that survey data I think is through early August. Is it August 4th? Thank you. Next area is certainly a broad one, but I want you to know, in my first 30 days, some of this area specific to infrastructure review at a very high level, we're starting to spend some time on. So the electric power substation is obviously a big one. Project. We have weekly meetings with our engineering consultant. Ultimately, that project is broken down into 5 components. The first component is the underground work, and it's scheduled to go to bid so that they can start doing that underground work yet this construction season. The other 4 pieces would, those bid specs are being wrapped up or so that in early 2027, they can get underway, all of which is scheduled for a fall of 27 for that project to be completed, for the substation to be operational. and probably should have asked Nick, I think we're somewhere in the 10 million ballpark, aren't we? Or it's a 8-figure, 7-figure project. I guess it's a 7-figure.
7-figure, and we've absorbed a good 1.5 million of it already through cash reserves, just because the time has stretched out. So I'll be working on the bonding issue here the next 30 days to see where we're at. I'm waiting on some of the bigger bids, so I have a better understanding of how much money we need. But we're getting there. It's gonna come all of a sudden, real quickly.
And I know with all of these, and electric is not an exception, several of you have asked me about, and no, I know that rates, electric rates. I mean, these things aren't complicated, they're expensive, but they're not that complicated to figure out. You know, an engineer can tell you what it costs you, and say an accountant can tell you how much money you gotta raise, and then an elected official's gotta be willing to adjust the rates to cover that, and it's nice to get some grants on the side, for sure. But I'm a firm believer that if we depend on the federal government and the state to be building all of our infrastructure for us, that's not a good strategy. So we'll look for those grant opportunities for sure, but that shouldn't be the backbone of what we're doing. On a smaller side, but still quite impactful, is on the IT, information technology. Our servers are 14 years old. Unlike a 57 Bel Air or some other beautiful automobile that ages nicely, servers aren't one of those things. No, I'm not an IT guy. I've heard enough of them telling me every 5 to 7 years, 7 is stretching your servers. We're double that. And so we have had some issues in my short time here of software and computers not being able to do what they've needed to do as people are trying to pay their bills, pay their taxes, do things like that. So we've got the contract with Common Angle. Thank you, Common Angle. And that's going to be the first step, getting server replaced. I've authorized that within our budget, and then we'll have conversations about what, if any, what to take to the cloud and what not to take to the cloud. The fallacy that everything that goes to the cloud is nothing for us to worry about, I learned the hard way, is a fallacy as well. So IT is on the table. Street condition report. I'm told there's a quality condition report that was done some 15, 20 years ago by Bench. I've asked them to get me a copy of it and give me a price to update it. Basically, not rocket science, what condition are our streets in, which ones are too far gone to just do a mill and overlay, which ones can be mill and overlaid, which ones can be chip sealed to extend their lives. And in a few minutes, we're going to talk about, we thought we could do a mill and overlay, but it's not in good enough shape to do that. So anyways, water pipe replacement, I'm given the impression that that may be the area we're in the best condition. That a lot of our water mains were replaced over the past 25, 30 years. And so I do have a map in my office showing me from Benchmark what year what got replaced. And I don't think it means there are no water mains up for replacement, but again, the indication is that's an area that we may be in the best shape in. Sewer lift station, I have not had a chance yet, just heard about it. Unfortunately wasn't able to go to I was double booked when the wastewater sewer board meeting was, but that'll be an area to get involved in, obviously. And we have the collection system. So that collection system, is essential to it. Nothing worse than a sewer backup problem on someone's property. So sidewalk condition, that's an area to review. And then one that I think is often missed as well is facilities. These buildings are also worth a lot of money. They age. And with the harbor and with electric and even what replacing the roof as an example on the salt shed, those buildings are public assets. And so all of those are areas that just starting to kind of get a bit of an idea so that when we get into the budgeting process and ultimately the capital improvement process, we can get into those issues. I do have a memo that I have not cracked open yet from Jeff, about some dangerous structures in town. So I know we've had some public comment on that at a few board meetings. And so not ignoring it, I just haven't gotten to it, but Jeff has got that on my desk. And then I'm not gonna list them, but this project list came from just what kind of accumulated from the chief as he was interim city manager, and then just a couple of things. I think, Zorn Beach bathhouse after action review, staffing analysis. We've known that, right? Not only was there a change in leadership in my position, we had unfortunately, our public works directors in hospice care and changes throughout the organization have a significant effect wherever they are, but particularly when they're in a leadership position, there's a lot going on there. So that's it. I'll leave it at that. Happy to answer any questions you guys have. And it will certainly be my goal as we get into the fall and I get more oriented with things that you would get this you would get this in writing with the packet.
We don't have your backside, or I don't have. Part.
Well, that's on me.
That's okay. Maybe just email it tomorrow or something.
Can you read it?
Yes, yep, project list, AV quotes, we heard about that last week, Shea Park MOU, newspaper racks, Kiwanis Park bids, substation bids, electric rates, alcohol consumption at parks, charter amendments, Pine Street, Major Street, RFP policy review, short-term rentals, Zorn Beach bathhouse after action review, staffing analysis, purchase and procurement policy. Ultimately, for me, what I've seen is kind of a natural is sometimes the first go around, it might feel like for the new manager, here's a to-do list. And let's at least confirm that 3 or more of you think this is important. And then what priority order do they go in? And that's not a bad start for a new manager and a new team, but then fairly quickly, we want to evolve into ultimately, what's our vision? What are our shared values? And are we setting a strategic plan or strategic direction? I don't want to overstate a strategic plan. Not that that's a bad thing, it's not, but a strategic direction so that we could absolutely stay really busy just doing the things that come up from any staff member, you guys, or the public, if we simply just responded to what people asked us to do. So, anyways. Oh, sorry. So now do you want to, I was going to do the Center Street construction project. Where do you want that? Do you want that under new and old business, or do you want that?
Discussion items. We should do the Center Street and then we should also do C and F from the consent agenda before we move on to boards and commissions. So let's do Center first.
Okay. So today I received, fortunately, I did have the opportunity, though we did not call a meeting, ultimately determined that as nice of an idea was to get a letter in the mail and say, I'm gonna meet you in your neighborhood and tell you about the project. I frankly assumed that the letter would go straight in the garbage. They would have no idea what it was. And by the time they started construction, nobody would see much. So I literally just went door to door. There's 7 homes. So a couple of times we've gone door to door, caught almost everybody there. And the few we didn't, because they don't live in town, as soon as a big piece of equipment was next to their yard, they called me. So we've had those conversations. But today, unfortunately, what we did find out, so last week they did poured curb on Center Street. The whole street is not being curbed. We were just fixing some stormwater issues, basically near the intersection of Lake and Center. So I'm assuming you're all way more familiar with me. Center Street really is just 2 blocks or 2.5 blocks long. And the plan was to do a mill off 1.5 inches of asphalt, and put on fresh asphalt, along with doing a little bit of stormwater work to help with flooding. That was really the project. So they poured the curb last week, that went fine. And they installed some storm pipe or a storm inlet, and actually it worked great because the 4.5 inches that we got Friday, I'm told there was a lake where this is in the past, and I went there Saturday and it was dry. I mean, there was no water sitting there. So that's the good news. The bad news is they discovered that there's not 3 inches of asphalt across that street. So they can't mill off 1.5 inches and simply come back. You know, they were gonna pull a crew off of I-75. They were gonna come over, mill it in 4 hours, be out of here. But they can't do that. There's only 1.5 inches of asphalt. So, that's kind of the bad news. So what are our options? So within the budget, so essentially we have $105,000, I think we budgeted for pavement projects this summer. This one bid at 88 or round up to 90,000. And then we were gonna do some patchwork, 2 spots on Glen, another spot on Pine, and at the shops complex, we were gonna do some work, and that was gonna add about $40,000. But now what we face is to either only rebuild Center up to where they poured the curb. So about half of one block. That could be done. They didn't have a price for me, but that's gonna cost less than the $88,000 contract. I'm not recommending that, but that would be an option. Just do absolute minimum and figure out this fall, what are we gonna do with this in the future? Second option, they did have a number for me, is to do the rest of that first block. So Lake to Maple, it's just under $100,000. So within the budget allotment, we could do that. My recommendation, along with Dan Chop, who runs streets for us, and also Brian, who works at Benchmark, frankly, is it takes the project up to just under 150,000 to peel off the asphalt for the rest of it. Make sure we've got a decent gravel base of about 6 inches end to end, and put 3 inches of fresh asphalt on it. Then, yeah, so that cost is about 150. So that's about a 50% increase in cost. The good news is that the local street fund currently has a balance of $565,000. So we've got the resources to do it. And as exciting as that number is compared to this budget, the bad news is we could spend that 565 probably on about 5 blocks around town. And there's more than 5 blocks. There's about 18 miles of streets. So anyways, I'm looking for direction from you as to which of those 3 options you want me to pursue, recognizing if you go with the third, we'll need to come back later with a budget amendment. I've also included the fact that we had some spots we were gonna have them do, like I said, 2 of them on Glen, 2 on Pine, and the public workshop area's got a significant hole we were gonna take care of. So in round numbers, I think we're talking about $200,000 of the local street fund. That does not include the collection for this current year. So that's what its balance is today. Today, according to Nick, it's got a balance of 565. Where each year collect about 365 or and new revenue to help build and do street work. So that's what I'm hoping to get some direction from you guys on what you'd like me to do. Recognize the contractors out there on site. So timing was good to figure out if we're gonna do something here or not.
Nick, when we did State Street project, it was 650,000.
That sounds right, yeah.
Where did we come in on that?
I believe that we were right on budget, maybe a slight overage. I'd have to look.
I was hoping you were under.
No, nothing's ever under. I can say that the local streets and major streets collectively have well in excess of $1 million+ plus dollars. So if we do a major street project such as the State Street project, some of it was allocated to water and sewer. Some of it was allocated to resurfacing, which was covered by the major street, which entailed a transfer from the local street fund tax revenues.
And next year we have, I think, the Glen Drive water main and what would probably be resurfacing, or is that 2 years out?
On our CIP, that's been 2 years out since I've been here, just for the sheer
Never gets here.
enormous, I mean, we've had comment on it tonight during public comment. And there is some discussion that's been had over the years about Glen Drive, and I think this is, Chris was gonna touch on, or already did, on doing some nice patches, hot patch. That would alleviate some of the issues for a while. There are two groups, from what I've heard from, some don't want the road touched because it's gonna be widened, it's gonna be a whole different look. To bring it up to specs and fill it and raise it so it'll last. Others want it just patched so that it's what a ton of trees.
Can we at some point discuss that further, just so people understand the reality of what has to be done if we completely redo it versus continue to patch it? Because I think that that's what they're gonna wanna know.
Right.
And I think in the meantime, like I drove back there today and I feel like the speed limit should be like 10 miles an hour. I mean, all of the curves have like a 15 mile an hour, but that means that the rest of the time it's the speed limit is probably 25, but can we lower it?
It's a local street, isn't it? I mean, I would think we have full control over what speed we set. Definitely engineers will tell you they're the uniform traffic code, you know, which is a very comprehensive, document built on data over decades, makes strong recommendations as to what you shall and shall not do. But that being said, that's your local streets you have the most control over. You'll have a hard time, I would think, getting the state of Michigan to do something outside of what that recommends. But even at that, we've successfully taken on those assumptions relative to this is our local community. So back to the deeper question, I think all 18 miles of streets, ultimately, what is their condition? What is their priority? How much money should we be putting in each year? It's gonna need to be more than 2 blocks.
Yeah.
Right? We're gonna stay on the Michigan way of road building if we do 2 blocks a summer. And I'm determined that that's something I wanna see different as you cross into our city limit line and notice something very different than what I noticed driving through other towns in Michigan. That's easier said than done. That costs money.
So if it isn't Glen Drive, it's Bay Street water main that's on the capital improvement plan for next year.
They all kind of change every year.
Right.
But we've had something there.
Right, but then it gets either pushed back
1.2 million.
or something else becomes a priority, like State Street wasn't a priority until that rippling happened when everyone was using that road instead of M119. And so then that got bumped ahead of everything else.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
To answer your question, there's a pot of money. You guys let us know where to spend it.
And water money, I mean, I'm assuming that Michigan's got the same laws I'm accustomed to. You can't spend water money on the street other than to repair the street because you replaced a main. But generally speaking, your water, when you pay your water bill, that money only is being spent to build out the water system and replace the water system. Same thing on the wastewater side, same thing on the electric side. So yes, of course, what's underground needs to be dealt with at the same time or first, but no street money, straight up street budget. The streets is gonna be the exception, except for money from the state. If we have a local tax that we collect streets on, you probably, if it's just our general fund, you can spend it however you want. But you can't go the reverse and take your utility money and spend it saying, we really wanna hit streets hard.
Well, I think we're getting a twofer. If you have to dig the street up to replace the water main, you're gonna have to do the street.
Yes. And unless it's in great shape, we shouldn't just be replacing that asphalt on top of the line. We'll want to be doing it, and we'll want to be replacing the street. So that's where, again, that the condition index of understanding of those 18 miles. How many of them are so far gone that you're wasting your money putting 3 inches of fresh asphalt on them? Because you're just going to be disappointed to find out in 4 or 5 or 6 years, you won't have known you did that. Which are the ones that their base is in really good shape and you really can come in and mill off 1.5 inches, repave it, a little bit of base work, and you get it 20 years out of it. All those components is what I would expect to be our conversation with capital improvement plan. It won't be perfect in the first year. I don't want to overpromise that here in 90 days, we're going to be able to cover everything across the city. But within a couple, 2 or 3 years, we ought to be in really good shape of understanding what needs to be done, how much will it cost to do it, and how does our current rate compare to what it would need to be in today's dollars to do that much work. So if we need to be replacing a mile of sewer line under the ground, and a mile of sewer is $1 million each summer to do a mile, but we're only spending 200,000 a year. I want Nick to tell me how much would a person's sewer bill have to go up in order to be putting the million in? And then ultimately for you guys to determine, are we going to take 3 years to get there, 1 year to get there, or what's our implementation strategy? So that we're not just kicking the projects.
I guess going back to the Center Street, I think that we should do the full project, even though it's expensive. But I also want to make sure that we aren't skipping over the patches that we were gonna do unless it is something that can actually wait.
In other words, to do the 150 for Center, but also you're fine spending another 40 to do those other kind of patch.
Unless it's something that can wait, but I mean, I know that Glen Drive, I don't know that Glen Drive can wait.
I think the feedback I get from Dan, goes by Chop, who is our street supervisor, is what we're doing today, what we've been doing is we're going just kind of crisis to crisis. So when you say, can we get another year out of it? Yeah, we've been getting another year out of all of them. So on what point do we start, unless we say, no, we're not throwing 40,000 away on patches. Period. The patches are just gonna get worse and worse and worse because that 40 is going for actual reconstruction projects. And the worst thing you can do for speeders is give them a new, nice, shiny road to drive on, and I'm guilty too, although I've been on Glen many times.
Yeah.
Very slowly enjoying the drive on Glen.
The uniqueness if we change the speed
Oh,
limit to
absolutely.
like 7.
Like 7. PD might tell you they can't really ticket somebody if you put the limit so low that.
But you really have to drive that slow.
There is some value being how we have our contractor on Center Street.
Yeah.
There is some financial gain to doing these patches while they're staged here in town.
Yeah.
Well, it sure be nice to shop for Glen Drive. Nobody pays more taxes in this town than that street.
I think that's something like Chris had said, maybe that's something we need to discuss. At a later date, I guess.
Although if you want to do I would say, if we're gonna do the patches, you know, as Nick just said, it's kind of, this is all really, really small stuff.
Whose street are we doing next year? I mean, what's our next big priority?
I did not unfortunately pull out the capital improvement plan to see, since the interview process.
But I think
What
that
is in there?
you answered that when you said we're going from crisis to crisis. And it seems like we never know. And I remember when we were doing the CIP this past year, a lot of times it'll just say a street. And then we would get there and be like, okay, Like what's the crisis this year? So I don't think that the CIP actually states an actual street.
I was directed by the CIP and you guys and previous councils even include in major and local streets, $100,000 just for surface maintenance. And not including your water projects, your sewer projects, storm drains, just surface. And that's where Center Street became more urgent than whatever other street. And then next year it will be, we need to do this section over here.
Yeah, I think frankly, am I right? Probably got driven as much as anything by the stormwater problems. Because there was puddles and I don't want to say flooding, but there were definitely areas that there were stormwater issues, both on the school district property and the city. So anyways, I think for tonight, if you want to move forward with one of the three options, how you want to treat the additional 40, our conversation, I think it's appropriate. I think you can authorize me to get that work done. We will technically come back after the fact and amend the budget and point out, exactly why did we amend the budget. And I'll put on there that the July 20th conversation is what drove the change.
I think we gotta do it right.
I think so too.
Long-term doing it right is the right way. Lucky it doesn't come through the rough drive like Center Street used to be.
So I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the cost estimate of $148,824,000 to rebuild both blocks of Center Street between Lake and Pine.
Did you want to include anything with Glen Drive in there at this point?
That'll be a second recommendation.
So I have a second on the Center Street.
I'll second.
Judy Benjamin,
Yes.
Damon Milky,
Yes.
Wendy Reeve,
Yes,
Tom Graham.
Yes.
Motion carried on Second Street.
center.
Center stuff, sorry. I've lived here 56 years and I really still don't know the names of our
Second Street
streets.
just got all excited.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they've been complaining.
Chris, just for clarification, the CIP for 2027 just says $100,000 chip and seal. There is no designated area.
Thank you. Oops, sorry. Thank you, Chief. So yeah, if the council is inclined, I don't know if you want to make a motion for the patch projects that we've added to it under consideration or not.
I move to approve of the patchwork that has been recommended as well.
So that's 40,000 for Glen Drive. Where's there patching needed on Pine Street?
Just, I don't know why. It should be so easy to know north, south, east, and west when you have Lake Michigan, but this bay screws, it still messes my senses up. It's to the right when you're looking at the school. So is that north?
West.
West.
Right of the west.
Okay, so west up towards the next intersection. Sorry, I don't have that one to memory yet. There's a chunk in there with a bunch of potholes that have been cold patched.
Spring run.
Yeah.
Adjacent
So I
to-
think just before you get to spring, there's a chunk of, I'm gonna say, 20 yards or something, 30 yards. There's an area where there's a lot of potholes, a lot of cold patch, and that's the kind of thing that we certainly didn't go through the whole town. I mean, I think if Chop were here, he would say, no, I didn't analyze the whole 18 miles and tell you these are the 4 most impactful ones. But definitely Glen is falling apart and you're so close to Pine. We're so close to this. Let's get that one while they're here.
So we just used up all of last year's $100,000 streets budget.
Last year, yes. Yes.
2027.
No, this is 2026's budget, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So when we
Right,
bring,
but when we've just added an additional 60,000 and then 40,000 for these patches.
oh,
That's.
if we were only gonna stick with $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Sure.
Did you make a motion?
I did.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second, Tom Graham,
Yes.
Wendy Reeve.
Yes.
Jeannie Benjamin.
Yes.
Jamie Milky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Now to the potentially dangerous structures.
Okay, so you want to take them in order. The first one we pulled off consent was C, right?
Yes.
The salt shed roof. So what I have is we've got 3 roofs to replace. $40,000 is in the budget for roofs this year. The Zorn bathhouse, I think was, they say I put it in there, so it was $7,900 or $8,000 to do that roof. We have one verbal price and one written price on the replacement of the salt shed. Both are just north of the $10,000 that I have the authority to approve, hence why I'm here. But one of those was not in writing, so I've asked them to get it to us in writing, and then there's a third company that says they're gonna give me numbers too. So since I had a verbal at 11.2 and I have a written at a little more than that with some options, I was comfortable, I rounded up that 15,000 would give me enough authority to both pick the right project, but also there always should be a contingency in these projects, right? If that 148 and change number turns to 149.5, we're gonna have to deal with it and then just come back and tell you what happened. So admittedly, there's a contingency on the roof project, but that's the roof, salt shed roof, shingles are all curling on it. Nobody can tell me when it was replaced yet. It was in the budget as one of the 3 to be replaced. It's a quick, easy project. But that's because I don't have the bids all in writing. I wasn't able to say to you, here's the 3 companies, here's their prices. I'm recommending you pick C for this number. I don't have enough of that information to give it to you tonight.
Are these asphalt shingles?
Yes.
What's the life expectancy?
I think they both thought, because we talked steel, 25 years was a 25-year shingle. Is what both of them who gave us proposals so far recommended is probably your sweet spot, because we talked about would steel be better? But it's a non-heated space, so on the one hand, it should get more life, and so some wondered if it's steel, but it's full of salt. So steel and salt don't go that well together either, and told frankly, by the time they screw all the holes to put the steel down, the steel doesn't really give you that much more life than asphalt for a building like this. So just looking for authorization, you could pick a number. I asked for up to 15,000. Part of my credibility, right, is if I tell you up to 15 and each time I bring you later telling you it costs 16.5 versus if I tell you we got it done for 11.5, that's better. So
I move to authorize the city manager to spend no more than 15,000 to replace the salt shed roof.
And second.
Financial decisions, Tom Graham.
Yes.
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Wendy Reeve.
Yes.
Jeannie Benjamin.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I should have said, the third roof, the one price we have in writing is under 10. So that's why I didn't have it as an added piece, but that's where the other part of that budget will be spent. So then the next one that was pulled, wasn't there one more?
Yeah, the
Oh,
closing the street.
yes. Yeah, so I don't know, sorry to put the chief on the spot. There have been some conversations with the neighbors, but I don't know if they were able to get us any additional information. But
I reached out to Rob Sears, he's the one that's requesting it, to say, because Chris and I had spoken about that, he needed to get permission from Landowners Association. And so he did reach out to Shirley, and I spoke with Shirley while Rob was there, and then Chris actually, or not Chris, Rob actually sent me an email from one of the neighbors. We are ready to let you know of our complete support of the temporary road closures for a wedding on Beach Drive on September 12th. And this comes from 3 Beach Drive, Shays, which is 2 houses down. So that was the letter I got. I did, when Rob was there with Shirley, she agreed that they were okay with it. That's the landowners, not the homeowners.
Sorry, they had two requests. One was for the street for a couple of hours, and then the other one was for the Pennsylvania parking area, which I even had someone in my office today specifically with a boat and trailer having issues there. My understanding through the conversations is it would not be good for us to switch that Pennsylvania lot for wedding overspill, that there will be people who expect to be able to put their boat and their trailer in there and they won't be able to, so.
And we vetoed that just because there's ample parking back here.
Yeah.
And that goes up through, well, past September 12th. So Chris and I spoke and we both agreed, there's parking around here, the Ottawa Stadium parking, as long as it's on a Saturday, not on a Friday where we may potentially have a football game, we should be good there. So that was our decision.
I don't have an opinion really, but I guess the reason I pulled it is because I do think that if people are asking for barricades to block off streets and asking for police services to come and block the streets off, that there should be a payment of what it costs for city services to do those things. So that's my only reasoning really for wanting to have a discussion about it is, a few years ago, we had a commercial downtown and we charged them whatever the police rate was per hour, to be able to have that done. So I think that we could come up with a price, and if we all agree that they can shut it down, then they can shut it down. But I think we should have a price.
And I don't want to speak to Chris, but like we could come up with a price on our end and also the Department of Public Works, and because they're the ones that are gonna be delivering.
Yeah.
We'll be putting it out monitoring, but they will actually have more time in it than
Yeah.
what we will have.
I mean, I guess I would like to see us charging them for the services they use.
I mean, I thought it would be whether we have it ultimately formalized in a policy or in the meantime verbally, I would be accustomed to, yes, they're not a huge charge unless it's for some for-profit thing, but there's a cost to doing it. There's work that's being done and that shouldn't be borne by all the citizens. That's a request. So that's something I would frankly, if you're inclined to add to the to-do list. And then
In the process of the
Okay.
event policy.
yeah, and then ultimately, I wouldn't come to you to ask for an approval of something of this magnitude. I would have had the conversation with the chief, with the neighbors, and for 2 hours approved it the way we have. And then if I would have heard a lot from you afterwards, like, how dare we need to change the policy, then I would do it that way rather than taking your time on a Monday night to talk about a 2-hour closure on a street.
I feel like every time one of these requests come to us, we're told these don't happen often.
But they have.
And it just, they continue to happen. And I think that's why the event policy does need to be redone and the Parks Board is working on it to present to council. But if private citizens want to use city services, I think they should have to pay for it.
And that's easy enough for me to come up with a rate to facilitate the process.
I guess I move to approve this request. If Chris and Nick and Kyle work together to come up with a price to cover the services.
To be added to this, to add this request.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we can do a consensus here, not a money situation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Finding path we took to get here. Now we're getting to the bottom of the list.
Boards and committees. I'll go first. We had a Parks Board meeting on July 14th. We revisited the events on public property and we came to some consensus on why we need the policy. Next, we are going to work on what kind of events are being requested. We discussed the master plan questions and our next Parks Corners article asking for feedback from residents. I think our master plan has to be done by the end of next year. The dates for all of the parks programming are up on the city website on July 28th, Tuesday from 5:30 to 7. There will be swimming and s'mores. Every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. there's a walking club. Tomorrow they're meeting in Upper Zorn. And then we also discussed some other things we've learned about some of the projects that we've had going on, as well as an exclusion policy that would allow the police to ask people to leave public property if they are being disruptive or harassing others, or there's any alarming conduct. There's been a reoccurring issue at the beach for the last 6 years, and there's kind of not a lot that can be done right now, but this exclusionary policy would help remedy that situation and be able to, at least the police could ask them to leave the property. I think it's really important. The Parks Board all think it should come to council. It's kind of an urgent matter. I don't want to go into too much detail, but if any of you have questions, I would be happy to talk more about it after, but I do think it should be on the next agenda if it needs council approval.
Anybody else?
The sewer authority met July 9th, and we approved the audit. And we elected a new chairperson because Denny Kaiser from Bear Creek retired, and it is Nick Whitaker.
Congrats.
Thanks, Randy.
That's all we did.
Pretty much all we did.
Jeannie asked me to provide an update for the planning commission. At the last meeting we just had on Thursday, we denied an application for a building downtown. We denied that based on a couple of factors, one being lack of drainage information and some decisions following a city attorney's opinion. We approved an application for some updates to the parking lot at the Harbor Market. And then we had a really good in-depth discussion regarding some changes that need to be made to the zoning code within the central business district for buildings and heights. And we should hopefully get some updates for that to you as soon as possible. Part of the discussion, we did look at potential timing, and we're not certain that we can get that done within the initial 90 days of moratorium. So we may have to come back and ask for a short extension to that to be able to get the project done.
Did you set a special meeting?
We have a special meeting for the planning commission on July 30th, where we will be reviewing some potential draft language to be added to the zoning code for the central business district.
Couldn't have said it any better. Thank you.
Yep.
Did you have any meetings, Tom?
No, I did not.
May I speak
Gail.
on behalf of the DBA? So we've had, we've hosted 3 open houses.
Hey, Gail.
For, stand up.
Sorry.
I can't barely walk. Okay, we had 3 open house meetings, the 14th of July, 17th of July, and then this evening we had 1. So those are public meetings. We invite everyone to come in. And we had our boards all out, but these were really almost one-on-one. So just sharing with them, and we kept notebooks with all of the responses. Just what do you need? What don't you need? What do you like? What don't you like? And explaining, these are vision boards, what they're seeing, Beckett and Rader put up some boards and that is helpful, but it makes people think that it's the final, and it is not. So, and we're getting all kinds of comments, and they're very helpful. And we use that, remember the sticky notes we put up? We use that original board to help people understand what we're looking for. But the one thing, we do have another meeting, and which I need to share, is July 30th from 5 to 7. So is that when the?
We'll have to adjust. You were first, so we'll figure out ours.
Okay. Yeah,
Sorry
okay,
about
just want, no, that's okay, I just wanted to make sure. And please vote for the lampposts. They, all three colors are up, spring and Main. The original color is at, by the bank. So we're getting responses, but we really want a lot of responses. You know, we want to be transparent. The public is, I go into every store, please go down the street and look at all three of them. So if you haven't, please do. And that's all I have.
Does a survey allow for comments, just curiosity sake?
Yes.
Or is it just a pick A, B, or C
Oh, on the,
on the survey itself?
oh, when you hit that QR code, this one is just a,
No,
pretty much, yeah.
it's, you rank the three colors and then it asks you if you have any strong feelings. It asks you where you live. And if there's one other question, I think.
It's 5 questions, and the fifth one is, do you have a comment you'd like to share with us? Something like that. Or where you live, rank the 3, and do you have a comment?
I didn't take it yet.
Shame on you.
Well, I'm holding on. I have to absorb the colors on the different lights.
Yeah, the light we've had lately. It's
Yeah, exactly.
I want to see it in sunlight.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of yellow, but it can be yellow, so.
Like this?
Next stop.
Like, You're colorblind. Chris and Tom like pink.
He told me tonight he's colorblind.
Yeah. Was there a Harbor Commission meeting?
There was.
Since the last time, yes, where are we? Today's the 20th. I think you had one a couple weeks ago. Yeah. I didn't come prepared to talk about it.
That's
I
okay.
don't remember what we talked about.
I'll look it up.
Yeah,
It was a relatively,
the ships.
yeah, it was a relatively short meeting. We were, now it's coming back. We made some, finished up on our review of the commercial rules that hadn't been updated for a while, and we started on the broader general rules. And we kind of came to a stop at one point, when we got to the part about cruise ships, which, you know, we have various criteria when they can do it, one another. And we asked for an opinion from, Mr. Raymer as to whether we could just like prohibit. Because cruise ships are, while they're traditional in Harbor Springs, if you go back to like when I was a twinkle in my dad's eye, they currently are running ships that are 650 feet long. There are multiple companies that are doing it. The consensus among the commission is that bringing a floating hotel with 500 people on it into town and wanting to drop them all at the end of the dock is not what we need. The town is, you know, full during that time of the year for the most part. And so we're looking at ways to preemptively protect the town from being overrun by people who are not contributing anything other than, you know, buying ice cream or having a meal or whatever. The sense being that it affects safety, it affects all the other activities that are out there, you know, if they came during regatta, if they came during, you know, the example I used was when we're having the Melges 24 World Championships in town and the book festival at the same time, you know, drop something like that on the end of the dock. It's just not good for the town. So we haven't heard back yet. But we're working on that, and we're going through and picking out little details like changing the word must to the word may, and so little nitpicky things like that.
Thank you.
The biggie was the cruise ships.
Were you talking about Zoll Street?
We didn't talk about Zoll Street much, if at all, at that meeting, but that Zoll Street has definitely been a topic.
It's gonna be on the parks agenda next month.
Yeah, it's, so I will probably go to Parks and kind of lay out. I mean, there are two things that we're thinking about down there. One is shrubbery maintenance. And the other is allowing
along the east side where dinghies have traditionally been stored. The demand for storage along that part of the park has dropped off as people have migrated to the Zodiacs and little outboard powered things. We do not allow power driven boats at Zoll. And we're talking about modifying our rules to allow little sailboats up to like 14 feet. Right now, the rules say 12 feet is the limit of a dinghy that you can put in a place like that. There's really no place publicly that accommodates little sailing vessels like young people who are getting into the sport would like to use. And so we've been trying to figure out how to accommodate that for a long time. Since we're not doing any big projects, hopefully at Ford for a little while, we're looking at that space. So yes, we have talked about Zoll recently.
New and old.
That answered any questions.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Tom.
May I like to speak on this subject?
No. I would like to ask if in August we can have our quarterly budget update with maybe an emphasis on streets.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Should have had it today.
That's okay. I forgive you.
When will Benchmark have the study back to you?
Actually, the next step for them is to tell me what will be the price for them to do the analysis. So the analysis that exists, as I understand, is maybe 15, 20 years old. So I asked them, what will you charge me to update that?
Would it be better to have that before we look at, do we need that prior to going over?
The quarterly budget is just Nick telling us where we're at.
Okay, okay.
He sometimes forgets, so it was a gentle reminder.
No, the day after that meeting, I have an election, so I'm gonna have to go do it right now.
Okay. I said sometime in August.
Okay, I hold you to that.
So until then. Mr. Mayor. Can I bring up a few things real quick?
Sure, Chief.
So just real quick, there was some negative publicity about us and how we handled the situation up to Bliss Fest on social media. We had no involvement in that at all. If you saw some of the postings that really handled the police department, we did not respond. We're not investigating it. The Emmett County Sheriff's Office did put out a press release that they are investigating. So if you have any information, or I encourage anybody to contact them. The reference to what Jamie spoke about with the individual at the beach, if anybody sees anything, I don't care who it is, please contact. I heard tonight at 5:30 for the first time that this individual exposed himself. It's the first time I'd heard about it to a young child. And if we hear that, that's ammunition for us to go down and investigate it. When we don't hear it, it doesn't help. So I just want to encourage anybody. Officer Steele, we did have, he's going to be leaving to go to Holland Police Department. So we do have an opening. I've posted it. Unfortunately, that he's done a great job for us. But he has family down there that he wants to attend to. And the patrol boat, we've talked about that. It's in next year's budget. We did, Sergeant Bishop, myself did attend a meeting with FEMA, the Maritime Security Committee, and we're applying for a grant. I don't know if we'll get it or not, but they provided the Mackinac County with a boat a couple of years ago. We're hoping that we could get at that. We're gonna give it a try. Sergeant Bishop has done a lot of work with it. We're gonna submit it and see where we fall. And then just, there's a storm on the way, potential tornadoes even. So 9:30, 10 o'clock, I was hoping away. So just back down the hatches, but thanks for your time.
Yep.
Thank you, Chief.
Did Marquette hit him?
Yeah. I would like to make a motion that we put out the city planner's contract for an RFP.
I would second that.
Got me off guard there slightly.
We gotta get home before,
Hurricane.
my top is down.
So I have a motion by Councilperson Reeves, seconded by Councilperson Benjamin to put out an RFP for planning services.
Yes.
Motion is second.
Jamie seconded.
Okay, I'll do a roll call. Jamie Melky,
Yeah.
Judy Benjamin.
Yes.
Tom Graham.
Yes.
Wendy Reeve.
Yes.
Motion carried.
What was the decision on pups at the park?
That was a little daycare thing.
It
They
didn't,
never have time for their.
Yep.
Good, because I've been thinking that was a bad idea.
Yeah, I talked to them, I went into the store, shared with them that, you know, the reasons why we thought it was not gonna make, you know, wasn't a good idea. Now, they had to push that information up to somebody else because they wasn't the manager, they weren't there. And I gave them my name, phone number, for them to contact me, recommended how they might, what they might address if they wanted to even continue any kind of conversation, and I never heard from them.
I'm wondering what's going on with the Kiwanis building.
a lot. The, current building is not structurally sound enough to bear a new roof. So we are making sure that our grant money is extended and we are moving on. I personally think it should be on the parks agenda next month to move forward with it. But I mean, we could ask for it, them to take it up next month.
So has the $500,000 been extended?
I'm sure.
Since last year.
Oh, so we already have.
We have it, but
But
like, we're
it's-
still supposed to use it, so to
Right.
talk to the family and or the foundation would be the right thing to do.
Yes, in good faith, absolutely.
But I do think that that the Parks Board should prioritize what to do now. And I think that we had a long conversation about what happened with some repairs at the beach. And I personally don't think it's a project that we should piecemeal together. Because I think that a lot of things could go wrong. So I would like to see Parks take it up and bring it back to council sooner rather than later.
The family, the Harbor Petoskey Foundation needs to know what we plan to do in order to call the family to get it extended. They just don't want to contact them and say, can we extend it? They want to make sure.
We have a plan.
They want to make sure that we have a plan. So I can pull the DJ and DJ's waiting on somebody from our side to say, this is what we plan to do to get a hold of the Reynolds family to say, can we extend it?
I'm gonna be real quick. I love the Instagram posts. You guys are doing a great job. So on the poker run, and then there was just another one. I think that's fun. And 4th of July was amazing. Everything was cleaned up so fast. That was incredible. And then I think it's important to kind of summarize, just to make sure what I had written down, we kind of covered. So the time that you've spent on short-term rental, I think it's great to know that we'll bring that back or talk about that in September. So to summarize on that. And then blight, we left that.
Yeah, we have a blight building.
So
He hasn't read the memo yet.
Yeah, I've got a memo on my
So-
desk from Jeff on 2 properties, or is it, on 4 properties in town?
And do we have to work on, does council have to put more beef into our policy? Where are we with,
For the structures?
for blight, just in general, because it's just grass and landscape, do we need to work on something that is more structural? As a city policy, or is that under planning commission?
So the blight ordinance, and let's separate this because we have a dangerous structures section of the
Okay.
nuisance section of the city code,
Okay,
and we have a blight section.
okay,
And they cover different things. So, but yeah, I mean, you could sit down and review the blight ordinance and look at what types of updates you would like to make to that change, or what you'd like to keep, what you think you can improve.
given the feedback that we've had from people who are concerned, it sounds like something that we need to look at, or we just don't enforce it. I don't want us to get dumped
I
out
would
in.
recommend a review of that.
Okay,
I think some portions of that are kind of weak,
okay.
and it could be enhanced. That's my.
I know that Kathy at the last meeting had asked that short-term rentals be put on our agenda. So maybe if council just has it on the agenda as a discussion item to give planning commission direction. So that when they take it up in September, they have a little bit of direction from city council.
Absolutely, I think that would be great.
Okay.
You know, the planning commission will certainly have people from the community providing their thoughts.
Yeah.
But if you have some specific direction that you'd like to offer them of what you'd like feedback and recommendations for, that would be very helpful.
So we'll cover both maybe on the next agenda, looking at unsafe structures or how we want to reword that, and is that where we are? Because I think we leave things kind of open-ended sometimes. I just want to know how.
I think that planning commission is gonna deal with the structures conversation, it's not council.
No, it is council.
Oh.
The dangerous structures section of the city code
Okay.
specifies that the city manager and or city council review and address those situations. So I received numerous complaints about these 4 properties.
Okay.
And so I put together some documentation about the issues, provided that to Chris so that he can then
Come back to us.
work on what.
And I have no problem putting him on the agenda, especially if the expectation is, hey, we're gonna have a discussion about what the issue is.
We've never had.
How much homework, how much research or work do you want us to do ahead of time? When it's getting feedback, it doesn't require us to do. I will look at the memo these provided. It's a public document. I'll absolutely pass it on to you guys. And if you want it as a discussion item, either of them as a discussion item for direction.
Something Jim can direct? Is that something you direct us on as well, or?
I'd be happy to take a look at it, give my recommendations to Chris, and he can pass it on to the council.
Absolutely. I think on the short-term rental, you're gonna get deeper than just a one meeting conversation.
Yes.
For sure. At least that's what I've seen in the past.
Yeah.
But if you can give the planning board some, hey, don't touch this, we're not gonna go there. That we share this concern or that concern, I would think that would help them considerably to have a hint of what you guys are thinking. The danger is it's iterative, but or it can be, rather than simply waiting for them to bring it to you and then you act on it. I hear you saying, let's give some feedback back and forth.
Perfect. Thank you. Are we ready?
You ready to go home, Mary?
Yeah.
My notes are down.
Oh.
Oh, then we're all talked out with probably 9:03.
Did you, at the meeting time?
We're done.
I know.